microphone on, sorry. We're all here, Justin is excused. And Noah is here to give us the student council report. Welcome.
Hi, I hope you're all doing well this Monday evening. Just some recent updates around the school. We are currently, or actually today, we just stopped collecting food for a fall student council ran food drive. I think that went pretty successful. We kind of framed it in a way that it was almost like a class competition. So like you would donate food to your class, and then tomorrow I believe the winning class is going to pie their class representative. So that's exciting and fun. I think that went super well. Just recently winter sports started. I myself just came from swim practice today, so excuse my unusual appearance. Tomorrow we're having an hour-long lunch, which is a reward from a PBIS incentive for good behavior around the school. I think we were trying to meet less tardies in the morning, and I believe, if I'm not incorrect, that was achieved, so that's why we're getting that hour-long lunch. And then a little further out, the band concert will be on, the winter band concert will be on December 11th, and the choir concert will be on December 18th.
Fabulous.
Which class won the food drive?
I believe, do you know, I believe it was the juniors.
Okay. I love a little competition for a good cause.
Any more questions for Noah? Well, thank you and good luck with swim season.
Thank you.
And then we will move on to the superintendent reports.
Yeah, so a few topics, some driven by statute and timeline, so specifically related to spring election filing deadlines. Just to make everyone aware, December 26th, 2025 is the deadline for incumbents to file notice of non-candidacy. Also, the posting of incumbent non-candidacy will be driven by our school website. We'll put that on December 26th. If you can give us a heads up, we can certainly do that beforehand. I don't know if Carolyn will be working the day after Christmas, but if we can avoid that, it's helpful to get that information in advance. But certainly that's driven by state statute. January 6th, 2026 would be when candidate filing deadline for that ballot to come to district office. As a note, next Monday, December 1st, we just started promoting this on our Facebook page. If you are interested in serving as a board member, there is no requirement to serve or put paperwork in if you attend next Monday's meeting at district office. Just giving a high-level overview from WASB, as well as just an update on our strategic plan to give those potential candidates information about being a board member. So kind of like a training, if you will, for interested board members. Questions about that?
What seats are open? Potentially open?
Yep, so we have posted the Class A notice. We have a Village of Saukville seat, City of Port Washington seat, and a Town of Port Washington seat. There is no at-large seat. We are a unique district in that some of our seats are specific on where you have to live within the district in order to run. So it is a Saukville resident, a Town of Port Washington resident, and a City of Port Washington resident. Next, I'm going to invite John for his annual update from the fall sports and activities perspective. And I'll turn it over to him to go through his very robust slideshow of a lot of great things that happened at Port Washington High School and throughout the district.
Hello, good evening, guys. Yeah, we just wrapped up the fall sports. Remember, we have 8 sports in the fall, 6 in the winter, 7 in the spring. We just started our first year with all sports going over besides football. I'll be clear. Besides football, we're going to the Glacier Trails Conference. So we just got done going into there for the first year. The North Shore that we still have sports in will be boys volleyball are still in the North Shore, along with girls swimming that are still in the North Shore, because that's just, we don't have any teams to compete against if we didn't. So those two still stay. Football is our last year in the East Central Conference, and we'll be going to the Glacier Trails next year along with all the other sports. So overall, I thought that we had a really good showing for our sports for this fall. Our girls tennis finished 3rd place overall in the Glacier Trails. Girls volleyball took a 1st place finish, first time conference champs, like in their history, so that was outstanding. And then boys soccer had a really good year, 4th place overall, and did a good job in the Glacier Trails. So the football team, we finished 7-4 overall, 2nd place in our East Central. We lost the playoff game, obviously, to Whitefish Bay, who went on all the way to the level 4 game and then ended up losing. So we had some great kids, over 16 kids who received some honors. You can glance through some of those. We had, I think, 9 first teams, 4 second team, and then 2 honorable mentions. 4 of our kiddos had all region. Cade Kintop had all region at wide receiver. Garrett, our nose guard, Garrett Kozinski, had an all region at defensive line. And then Isaiah Shefflin also had an all region. So we did a great year and a good season overall for football. Boys volleyball finished 14-12 overall, which was a huge, tremendous improvement from the year before. 5th place in the North Shore. The reason we stayed pretty much the same in terms of where we finished, but I think we competed in a lot more games this year in comparison to the years past, and we had a great showing. We lost in the regional playoff loss to Hartford in 5 sets. Grady Carls was an all-state honorable mention. He did tremendous and had a great year for them, along with Finn Pashik and Will Thiessen. Both of them had great seasons. Girls volleyball, like I said, was a conference champs with a record of 26-12 overall, but had a regional loss to Berlin West in the regional game there. First team honors were Nora Moreau, and then second team Scarlett Van Harpen, Sarah Hafe, and then Emerson rounded off with an honorable mention. So great year for them, for the girls volleyball. Our cross-country team also was in the Glacier Trails for the first time. We had high finishes. It says that the boys were 6th place overall in the Glacier Trails, but I talked with Mark Paston. 3 of our kids were out on that day and did not run. So with cross-country, it's one meet. You got to perform, and that's where you finish. But our girls finished 2nd place overall and did great. Jameson Knable had 5th place finish at state, and Ellie also did tremendous for the 2nd year in a row going to state with a finished 30th. She had told me she was sick that day and wasn't feeling the greatest, unfortunately, but had a great showing. And then you can see the rest of them. Both Jameson and Ellie broke the school records, so tremendous job for them. Our boys soccer team, 15-6-3 with the 4th place finish overall. It was a pretty hard year because 3 of those losses were, unfortunately, to KML, which, was one of the regional losses that we had, but had a great year. Scotty Bennett scored a ton of goals. Grayson Allen played well. George Pasick at the goalie, and then Angel Ramirez and John Woods also had great years. Our girls swim team had a really good, strong showing in the North Shore Conference. Amanda, as a freshman, has done outstanding. Obviously, broke some school records. 2nd place in both the 100 back and 200 free. Both broke both her school records on the backstroke. You can see the times there. Chloe Barber had a great showing at 10th place in diving. And then Eden Struble, Lily Kribel, Anna Neswitz, and then Amanda Lotz placed 8th and broke the school record again in the 200 free relay. In the 400 relay, the same girls finished 7th place and broke the school record from 2008 by over 3 seconds. So the girls have done tremendous. The numbers are really strong, and their program has just been growing and doing tremendous. Our girls tennis, overall 3-2 in the Glacier Trails, 3rd place. That's the highest finish in a long time for the girls. They also had some honors with 2nd team, Jessica Robertson, and then Kaylee Elgin and Lily Winker in doubles, Lucy Redler, and then Maddie Uslink in doubles as well. They had a great year. And then we went into our activities. We have limited activities in the fall, but a few of them started off and did some good things. Esports has 2 seasons. I think it's 2 fall, and then they'll start up here after the break. But they finished on Super Smash Brother players qualified in the individuals in the state championship at UW Eau Claire, 5th and 6th. And then a good shout out to a Fortnite duo who finished 2nd at state in the fall club season. So Zach and Angelo. Limited edition has not started that much, but they are prepping for their multiple festivals and events here in November and December. You can see the members that are there. The musical Mamma Mia was outstanding. I went on Saturday night with my wife. Some great, incredible singing. The stage and everything, the setup was just outstanding. Really good attendance. I thought it was great. A lot of great photos, and kids did great there. Again, we will continue to survey our coaches and see how their seasons went, and looking at participation, the accomplishments that they've had, and other key recommendations for any changes for their needs to make sure that our programs do well. So we've continued to survey them and getting some of that data back. We will end up having our preseason coaches and parent meeting coming up here for spring sports, and then we'll dive back in for the fall one. And then I've been meeting with my coaches individually to get feedback on how things are going for their seasons, and it continues to go well. Yeah. Any questions?
I have a question. I know that a couple years ago, I don't know exactly when it was, but you spent an awful lot of time looking at the different positions, like coaches or directors of different sports and activities, and making sure that there was an alignment with the commitment of time and all of that and their compensation. Do we have something similar with the budget for these different activities? Because I know of one activity that has a 0 budget at this time. So I'd like to see if we can make sure that we are supporting with a budget these activities as well.
Yeah, I know that all that has come. We started working 2 years ago on our salaries and making sure that we were being equitable for both the middle school and the high school, and we increased quite a bit of those salaries and paying coaches and individuals that weren't getting paid before. And so again, I think that is now coming as well as far as budgetary for all of those activities that we have. The problem is the consistency of an activity, if it lasts or if it doesn't last, and whether it gets onto the books. And we have a process now that's in place, whether if they have enough numbers and it's supported and it stays consistent, so then we can look to support that. So yes, those things are on the table, and I know that we plan on meeting with Mel.
I have a related question. I know that, again, you're gathering with your postseason surveys or post-activity surveys. Do you plan on sharing the participation and length of season and information with the board at some point in time? I don't think we've previously seen like the number of participants for each activity, unless I'm not recalling.
We did that last.
Yeah, so we did that at our summer retreat, just high level, but we can certainly dig into more specific data on how many students are involved in these various clubs and activities and get some updates to the board.
Yep, and then also it would be helpful to know like number of weeks or length of the activity or commitment as well.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, we have roughly around 375 athletes that participate in the fall, about around 220 that go into the winter, and then it'll creep back up around roughly that 300 mark for spring.
Yeah, I love
participation.
I think it's great the number of kids that are participating. Related to Kirsten's comment, though, it would just be helpful from a budgeting as we look at salaries. If someone's getting paid the same amount of money but has double the kids or double the season length or something, it would be helpful.
Yeah, so we've monitored that at least since I've been here. For example, our middle school musical has seen some high numbers the last 2 years, so we've actually added staff to that, some assistant directors, and so absolutely being mindful of what those look like for either added staff. Just recently, last month, I believe the board approved something as simple as student council advisors at all 3 elementaries. One building had that previously, and now we're adding it back to all 3. Certainly saw. Yep, and also the increase in art club. So, yep, all of those are responsive to our student needs and based on numbers and staffing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you to you and all the coaches and behind-the-scenes people for organizing, 400, kids throughout to make it available to all kids and parents, bus drivers, coaches. I know the coaches don't do it for the money. They're there for the kids, so thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
So next up, it is that time of year. Looking at school closings, we have a website that outlines this process. Just a couple things to note as it relates to wind chill and cold. There has been some changes as of last year on when we close based on language that's changed. So extreme cold warning is where we would cancel school. That was previously called wind chill advisory, et cetera. They've changed that language to be extreme cold versus cold weather advisory. Those are some of the non-negotiables that as we meet with local superintendents in the area, those numbers are tough to get kids out to a bus stop and prepared to go to school. Those are also more predictable, and we're able to cancel further in advance when those numbers are a little more predictable. As it relates to snow or ice, just a reminder, our goal is to get as much information to our parents and families to plan for. If we can do it the day before, based on weather alerts, we're doing that. But we have kind of honed in on texts and or email, and then we also use our Facebook page, and then we communicate with all the local news stations. So I see the weather later this week will start to turn colder. So I thought it'd be appropriate to say when and how we close school. So finally, we've grown accustomed to the timeline of bringing forth KPIs to the board. And so tonight I'm coming back to a KPI as it relates to open enrollment. This had previously been shared, and you can kind of see the numbers and trends that we're closing the gap, and we're now developing in the area of open enrollment, and this is from October of 2025. The missing piece of that was the finalization of data. And so what I am able to bring to you today is the data from the respondents of families that have left our district, or in some cases were never here and open enrolled out. So we've partnered with School Perceptions to send out this survey to family members dating back 12 years that have possibly open enrolled out. We actually had good responses. We had 82 families of the, and it doesn't necessarily correlate to the exact 180 that are out. This could be people that have since open enrolled out and are no longer. We were able to go back into the archives really to just dig in to see why you're leaving. And so this could include some families that are not enrolled in public school, could have graduated. So we had 82 responses. That was a 21% response rate of the families we reached out to. Simply put, we asked, did your child ever attend Port Washington-Saukville? And so 41% of that 82 never attended here. And so their data, as it reflects to why they left, was also, differed. And so we're able to dig in a little bit to that data. But 59% did attend here and then chose to open enroll out at one point. You can see where their child's current grade level was. So you can kind of see this represented a group of kids all the way from 4K all the way to 12th grade. So a good chunk of the data is across the data or across the gamut of our population. Where is your child now enrolling or now attending? 49% said a neighboring public school district. 13% are now in a private school. 9% virtual, 8% homeschool, and 28% other would be some of those related to they've graduated, they're not attending at that point. This is an important question for us as we think about recruiting and attracting those families back. Would you ever consider moving back to the district? 30% did say yes, and 46% no. So I want to point out the dark green and the light green, because the next few slides will say specifically if they're interested in why they left and kind of ways that we can recruit them back. So the following slides are asking the main reasons they chose to open enroll out and what factors were important to them as it relates to education. And then you can see that the dark green were the people that are, yes, interested in possibly coming back. And so those are the ones that I've really keyed in on strategies to bring them back. So what were the main reasons you chose to open and roll out? 35% of the families said bullying, and those same 35% would actually be possibly interested in coming back. But that was one of the key reasons. You can see the 58% that said bullying that are not interested, that it was to the point that they are no longer willing to come back to us because of an incident related to bullying. You can see the peer group was part of that connection. 26% would be willing to come back. Student achievement test scores was 22% of the yes group said. So again, higher than actually the group that was is not interested. Teaching methods, teaching performance, 22% said that would be interested in coming back. Class sizes that were too big. This is an interesting data point because our class sizes of this data were limited. They were smaller. I'll be eager to track this data moving forward, that we now do have slightly larger class sizes and comparable to our local districts. So, but at the time, 22% said they'd be willing to come back, but class sizes were a key part of that. Administrators' principal performance, 17% said interested coming back. So we do have a fresh set of administrators in many of our buildings, so that could be why we are seeing some of them come back. 33% was the no or not interested in coming back. Faith-based values. So some of those families that are going elsewhere for private, this lends itself to that they could be coming back for high school. We do see a lot of students come back for their freshman year when some of our local parochial schools are only through K-8, so that could be also part of that.
How many could parents take?
As many as they want. Yep. Yep, good question. This is slide 1 of 3, and so you can see that it's slowly diminishing, not as high of a response rate. Course offerings, 17%. So as we think about later on in the agenda, you're seeing new courses coming to us. This could hopefully be a way to recruit some of those families back. School board performance, 13% of the parents that were leaving that are interested in coming back was based on school board performance. Busing, transportation issues, 13%. If busing were to increase or get better, they would come back possibly. 0% of the no said busing or transportation was an issue, so I thought that was interesting. Special ed concerns, 13% would be interested in coming back. Virtual school provided more flexibility, flexible options. Community perception, word of mouth as they hear about other districts. Proximity to childcare is an important part, and poor facilities was the other one. Last page is really small. Very small percentage of people that responded that lack of before and after school care, perception of drug substance abuse, friends attending other districts. You can see that is where you're seeing a bigger chunk of people not coming back. This is a discussion we've had, that those students that we lost during COVID, that when they left us, they made connections with other friends, and it's tougher to leave those connections. Current school is closer to work home, lack of religious education, insufficient athletics and extracurriculars, parent attending neighboring district, or class sizes that were too small, 0, 0. So when making decisions about your child's education, what factors are most important? The most important part was competent and caring staff and discipline, safety, and bullying. So that does align in working with school perceptions as it relates to some of those bullying conversations, that they want there to be consequences and systems in place. Class sizes is important for families. Friendships with peers, student achievement, culture of academics, pretty even. But what we'll start to do is dig into, with that window of open enrollment and enrollment with 4K and 5K coming up in the coming months, tapping into these things to find ways to get families back that we're willing, and that's why we're really leaning into the dark green.
Is this also where they could choose as many as they'd like?
Yep. So you can kind of see the gamut, very similar in categories to the last slides that we showed. Advanced placement and course offerings. This is, again, as it relates to course and staff. New courses we're adding, 29% are interested in coming back. We're adding some AP as well as CAP courses. Could that entice some of this 29% to come back? Gifted and talented programming. Can we add more layers there to bring some of these families back? Opportunities for community service learning, extracurricular, technical vocation offerings, transportation busing, and buildings and grounds are all those big key topics. sports and programming, foreign language offerings, math and science. So really the gamut of a lot of things that we are then planning our new courses. And so as much as it is about what we offer, it's also about what our surrounding districts offering so we can be competitive. As it relates to families that are currently here, that are choosing to open enroll in, we've sent multiple survey responses that we just didn't feel comfortable. It is not statistically significant of the results that we've sent that out. To this point, we've had 6 parents respond to us and telling us why they're here. And as you saw from that first slide, we've have 160 or so families choosing us. So we actually got a better response to people filling out our survey that left compared to the open enroll in. We will make one more attempt. So as the beacon is released in December, we send it out paper copies to all families in the district and all community members. We then send a digital version of that to all of our open enrolled families since they wouldn't be receiving it in the mail. And in that email, we plead with them, hey, please tell us why you chose us. So that will be the next opportunity that we send to our open enroll in families to give us feedback on why us, why did you choose us? But at this point, it's not statistically significant to share that.
This is great. Thank you for sharing this data. I have a couple questions. First, was there an open response box at all, or was it all?
There was some comment section. There was limited comments.
Okay.
School Perceptions, for an additional cost, can analyze that data for you. We did not go that route because there just wasn't as many comments as what we've done in our own staff and family surveys where we have used that tool. But there were very limited comments on this survey.
And then the second one was thinking about moving forward, given that these folks have been surveyed once now. I'm assuming you're not going to do this annually because it wouldn't make sense to go back to the same pool of people.
Correct.
But I'm wondering if you have any other thoughts of how you can keep tabs if families decide to leave, get information from them without resurveying these same folks.
Without question. So this survey model that School Perceptions offered us was per response is what we paid for. And so knowing this was going to be a more expensive year because we were going back a number of years, moving forward, what we'll do is when that open enrollment time period comes in and we know new families, 4K, 5K families are choosing to go out, we will send that survey to that smaller group and just continue to stay up to date on that survey moving forward at a significantly less cost because it's not 10 years, 15 years of catching up.
Great, thank you.
And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Your board dates are in the calendar, and I just wanted to hope that all of our employees enjoyed American Education Week. On behalf of the entire board, I want to extend our deepest gratitude. We appreciate you, not just this week, but we appreciate you every week. Every day you bring dedication, compassion, and professionalism to our students, and it does not go unnoticed. Whether you work in the classroom, in our offices, in our cafeterias, on our grounds, we are district driver buses, or serve in any of the many roles that keep our district running, you play an essential part in shaping our students' experiences and futures. Thank you for showing up for our students. Thank you for being another trusted adult in their lives. Thank you for supporting one another. Thank you for giving our students a safe place to learn, grow, and discover who they are and what they can. Your work is meaningful and your impact extends far beyond the school day. On behalf of the Board of Education, please know how deeply we appreciate you.
Yeah, it was a great week. So we offered breakfast each morning. We also did an activity where we had 3 Post-it notes and we asked them to say who inspired them, just kind of a creative way to connect. And then we shared that out at the end of last week just for colleagues to see how much they're appreciated. One thing I talked every morning with staff about was just the power of the timing of this, that Teacher Appreciation Week is in May. And usually at that point, we're excited for summer and we've gotten through the tough parts. Like this is truly a time where we want to celebrate and be thankful for teachers and staff and everything that's happening in our buildings. So truly thank you to all, and we were able to celebrate last week, so.
Thank you. I didn't have my microphone on, so I guess everybody that was listening in couldn't hear what I had to say, but basically, thank you to all of our staff. Oh, thank you. I'll send out the hard copy. which I might do because I feel really bad that my microphone wasn't on. Sorry. We will move to committee reports, committee updates. Yvonne, would you like to give the
Yeah,
Curriculum
so
committee?
last week, Monday, we had a curriculum committee meeting. We started at 6 o'clock. We had discussed with Director Krybeck and other teachers like Mark Bickler, Ms. Gangler, Cook, Mr. Clothier, Zach Perkins. They presented new course proposals for the 26-27 school year for the following departments: the business, communication, computer science, music, wellness, and social studies. And it was very fun and enlightening to hear of our new courses. The committee moved the new course proposals for 26-27 school year recommendation for action at this evening's meeting. Dr. McMahon, Principal Beertzer, Kristen Cook, and Michaela Ferrante provided us an update on the high school schedule for the 2026-2027 school year. And then also Dr. McMahon provided us an update on the state report card. And we adjourned at 7:29.
Thank you. And then we have the Finance and Human Resources Committee.
So the Finance and Human Resources Committee met on Monday the 17th, starting at 7:31. We were provided information from Director Nedesheim on a new early retirement plan, which we will be seeing for action here tonight at the board meeting. Director Nedesheim also provided an update on learning-based compensation, with the committee moving that the recommended stipend cost per class increase from $125 per class for the learning-based compensation for 26-27 fiscal year for action for tonight's board meeting as well. And Director Nedesheim and Dr. McMahon provided district staffing audit, and the update on the district staffing audit will be shared in the December board meeting, and the meeting was adjourned at 8:05.
Great, thank you. Did any of the district-wide committees meet since our last meeting? Okay, none of that. I did not get any paperwork for public comment, so I will assume that there is none. We'll move on to consent agenda. That includes minutes and committee reports, business service report, human resources report, early retirement, and approval, and then the approval of all of that. Does anyone have any questions on any of the consent agenda items?
Just regarding the resignations and such, are we having still our exit interviews?
Yes, so we continue to offer that as an opportunity. I will say we're starting to see an uptick in the amount of staff taking the Google survey. That is a digital thing that we're sending out, so we're seeing more staff do that. And less during the school year are reaching out to me for that exit survey. It's kind of flipped. In the summer, they reach out to connect on an exit survey with me and then don't do the survey. And we're seeing a little bit different during the school year. But we continue to reach out to get that data for them.
Great, thank you.
If there are no other questions on it, I will make a motion to approve consent agenda, but I would like to pull schedule of bills 10.2 and 11.1.
I will second.
And we will do roll call.
Karen? Aye. Sarah?
Abstain.
Kirsten?
No, I'm sorry, I vote yes to that.
Yes, sorry. Sarah?
Yes.
Kirsten?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Yvonne?
Aye.
Elisa? Aye. Nicole?
Aye.
Motion passed.
I would move to approve consent agenda items, schedule of bills 10.2 as presented.
I'll second.
Karen? Aye. Sarah?
Abstain.
Kirsten?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Brian? Yvonne?
Aye.
Elisa?
Aye.
And Nicole?
Abstain.
And then I move to approve consent agenda items, schedule of bills 11.1 as presented.
Second.
Sarah?
Abstain.
Kirsten?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Yvonne?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
And Karen?
Aye.
Thank you. We will move on to new business, and our first item is the Washington DC trip donation.
Yeah, so previously this fall, you approved for a trip for our students to make a trip to Washington DC. This trip is an expensive trip for students, and so according to board policy, anytime we have a donation over $500 has kind of been our general rule of thumb. Policy says a little bit more, but we're bringing that forward to certainly just share the great community that we live in, that there continues to be the outpouring of support for our district. And so this is an anonymous donation of $9,625 to support students that cannot afford to go on the Washington DC field trip. So we've sent out communication on how families can tap into this scholarship donation. But again, it's anonymous, so we will reach out. We do know who that is, but they want it to remain anonymous at this board level. But really thankful for the outpouring of support that not all of our families can afford this this trip, so we appreciate the donation.
Well, thank you to our anonymous donor. That will make that opportunity available to all students. That's a wonderful, wonderful gift. So thank them on our behalf.
Absolutely.
Do we have to?
We
have a
do.
motion?
Yep, it's a accept it.
I move to approve the anonymous donation of $9,625 towards the Thomas Jefferson Middle School, Washington DC trip as presented.
I have a second.
Kirsten?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Yvonne?
Aye.
Elisa?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And Sarah?
Aye. And we will move on to the school report cards.
Yes, so this was brought forth to curriculum last week, but have some high-level topics that we'd like to bring forth tonight as updates. They are truly driven by the KPI, so each school year in October, we receive a school and district state report card. This was embargoed until around mid-November, and so last week we had a chance to bring forth these KPIs as it relates to the school report card. Really some high-level discussion happened last week, so this is the abbreviated discussion of that, but really drives home certain parts of our KPIs and specifically Learning Ready. So as it relates to the district-wide school report card, we exceed expectations. This is an area of growth. We increased in our score. Some celebrations within that score is our third grade ELA score of 84.1 ranks within the top 12% of districts. And so I make that note because it is the third year of our reading curriculum. And so we're starting to see that growth with our kindergarten, first and second grade students in the way we're teaching phonics. And so our third grade scores certainly rank just as high as everyone in the area. And we are seeing progress. So we're proud of that work. That then contributes to on-track graduation scores. And so we're seeing some growth there. An area of focus is our target group outcomes and growth, and as both the district and ELA and math, we're really working on those things related to growth in target group. You can see on that small box to the left, you can see our high school exceeds expectation, TJ meets expectation, Dunwoody significantly exceeds expectation, and both Lincoln and Saukville exceed expectations. We saw growth in the district as well as 4 of our 5 buildings on those report cards. And so we're proud of the work that our teachers and our staff do to impact these report cards in a positive way. Another indicator within the KPIs tied to our school report card is K-8 reading growth. And so as we look at that specific component of the report card, we're looking for our students to grow certainly at a score level, but also within the different categories, and they call that value added. And so truly we're reaching for that significantly exceeds expectations with our school report card priority score being above 70, and that 95 to 100% of our student groups are meeting that value added score. As a district, we are currently developing because we are above that score of 60, but are not meeting the value added score components within those groups. This is a celebration in 2 of our elementaries as it relates to reading. So both Dunwoody and Lincoln significantly exceed expectations. So they are on that far right side, with Saukville developing much like the district. TJ, however, is failing to meet expectations. So we've got a couple slides in a little bit that the action steps that we've already put in place to correct this. So shout out to Dunwoody and Lincoln and the work that they're doing as it relates to value added and growth scores in reading. The high school does not have this because they are not K-8, and so that is why you're not seeing the fifth school in that bottom box. We ask the same level of discussion as it relates to math. We want our students to grow in math, and so the report card reflects a score of above 60, so we are developing in math, but we are not providing the value-added components in those subgroups to get to that meets expectation area. Celebration is that 2 of our elementaries, again, Dunwoody and Lincoln, significantly exceeds expectations as it relates to these growth scores. However, both TJ and Saukville are currently failing to meet expectations, and so they are below that 60-point score. With Saukville moving in the right direction, but TJ falling slightly below last year's score. And so what I'd like to do is invite Mr. DeBaker to the microphone to talk through, again, really the work that this team has done already to this point. And so essentially, the work that we did 2 months ago will impact next fall's report card. And so we were anticipating some of this, and kudos to Nick and his team for already identifying areas that we can start to support kids specifically in WIN, as well as our math and ELA curriculum. So thanks, Nick.
Yeah, as Dr. McMahon mentioned, this was a trend that you could see coming as these scores correlate over 3 years. Well, I think the last report card was 2 years, but you could see this trend in TJ's report card over the last decade, actually, with the decline in growth particularly. So we knew that coming into this school year, and we had put some systems in place, some pretty significant changes as a result to try and impact these scores as we move into the school year. One thing I'll share with you is kind of how our we call it multi-level systems of support, but at TJ it's called WIN. So we'll talk a little bit about what that looked like last year, and then I'll talk more about what that looks like this year, and then some math and ELA action steps. So when we made a big shift in our WIN time, it put a little bit more work on the teacher's shoulders in regards to being a little bit more responsive with what students are doing. This was the analogy or the metaphor that we kind of use. We think of learning progression as all students are on the interstate. And there's 4 different kind of cars that we see. There's the passing lane, the cars that are moving very fast. So those are our students that are exceeding pretty rapidly through grade level curriculum. Students that are, on the lane, they're moving at the pace that they're supposed to. But previously what would happen when students would show that they weren't getting things at grade level, we would pull them off and off to the side. And we would put them in different tiered supports, whether it's tier 2 or tier 3. And sometimes those would take for a long period of time, 6 to 8 weeks was the previous structure. So as a result, those students continue to move forward. And we really had a focus on students under the 25th percentile. Well, as we know with the bottom quartile data, that should really be the bottom quartile students, which for TJ, we have students that sit in the 50th percentile that are in our bottom quartile because we do have a high achieving student population. So that was kind of an aha moment for us as a group, and really being intentional around what all of our students need. So really, it's about giving them access to the grade level curriculum and not removing them from access to that grade level curriculum and giving them pretty remedial work for, a significant period of time. So what supports do we need to give students to make sure that they are learning at grade level? So this is the big, we put this grid together to kind of share the big 5 components. So grouping and instructional modeling. So last year's, it was in a large group setting. So we would have upwards of 100 kids in either the library or in the cafeteria, and it was really like a holding space for students. Sometimes they worked on Lexia. If you had a middle school kid, I'm sure you heard them complaining about their Lexia minutes. I see some smiles already amongst you, so you know what I'm talking about. And then the current system, we don't have the large groups anymore. It's all built in the classroom. So students or teachers are, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like, but all WIN time is spent in the classrooms with groups led by teachers simultaneously. So using those 8 content area teachers to support those students in smaller settings. And we shifted from that large supervision space to direct instruction, optimizing the student to teacher ratio for better support. And I'll talk a little bit about how we do that when I get into the RTI scheduler piece. Step 2, support, focus, and alignment. So pullouts were really driven previously from that large group. Teachers might say, I need these 5 students, and it was really around missing work or 0. So really about compliance, student compliance, not about actual learning. So this year, the reteach groups are driven by the evidence-based students that are showing non-proficiency on priority standards. So linking those priority standards that we've identified our students need to know at grade level and providing those supports for them. And then the focus is now purely academic, so standards aligned. So the use of those essential skills around the grade level standards. Instructional consistency, so we previously had an inconsistent schedule and opportunities for support or enrichment. So not having the ability to pull kids as needed very, from day to day, it was really inconsistent with how that was done. But now we can consistently deliver reteaches around and extension opportunities based off of how our students are performing on priority standards. And that supports the students receive timely. So the minute that a teacher gives a common summative assessment, we're able to look at that data and then provide, okay, what reteach opportunities are we going to give these students? What reteach opportunities are we going to give this group of students? And then if students are already performing at grade level, how are we going to extend their learning? So every kid getting specifically exactly what they need, as well as students that might need more intensive interventions. Scheduling and accountability, this is a huge piece for us. Thank you to Sarah and Michael for letting us get RTI scheduler because it's been huge. So challenging, it was manually trying to get students through a Google Doc. So like there was no system to it. RTI scheduler is a new program that we utilize now. So essentially what teachers can do is they claim or draft students into their group. And then the students come into school that day and they walk into school, and by 7 a.m. an email goes out to them notifying them where they're going to be for when. So the students then know exactly where they're going to go for when. It could be to math for a reteach, it could be to ELA for an extension opportunity or a boundless book club. It could be to this space because they didn't meet their success maker minutes, or it could be to support interrelated arts. If those criteria are met, then there's other opportunities there for that. So now we're able to real-time get students into a space to give them supports that they need. Data collection and analysis, there really wasn't any real consistent tracking unless you were in a really structured, tiered intervention. Then those were tracked rigorously, but we were not keeping track of students that might get pulled into ELA because they needed to finish a homework assignment. RTI scheduler does all of this data tracking for us, and I will show you an example of that in the next slide. And that enables us to really make data-driven decisions around what we are doing and providing some clear evidence into how we're supporting students. So this is an example of 3 teachers and what RTI scheduler looks like on their end. So we can do this by week, we can do this by month, we can do this by quarter, we can do this for the whole year, and it really shows. So teacher A has 24% of their win time has been spent reteaching. 19% they've provided extension opportunities. So really, that's what this individual teacher has done with their time during win to support students. Teacher B, same example. They've really been supporting in the reteach efforts with 60% of their time being spent on that. And teacher C, once again, 53% doing reteach during win with particular groups of students. On the right side, you have examples of 3 students, and this shows us where the individual students are spending their time during win. The one thing that we were able to do very recently was get that lower quartile data to our, so actually putting faces to those numbers. So all teachers have access to that now, and being able to really identify where those students are in this time period during our day is really, really important. But this is a good example of, student B and C has spent a lot of time in reteach opportunities, and then you can see a breakdown in departments as to where they're spending their time. So this is great data for us to have as well. For math and ELA action steps, one of the big things in the shift to evidence-based grading and picking those priority standards was, and last year having the benefit of having those forward scores in May, which was the first time ever we were able to do that, we were actually able to align and calibrate our priority standards to our forward data. And we had picked each department, kudos to the teaching teams, they had already identified priority standards that directly align to our forward scores. So our focus around ELA and math at TJ is around these priority standards and making sure that students are achieving those at a proficient level. And we've talked about this in regards to if we're doing our grading system correctly, the forward scores won't be a surprise to us when it happens in May. In math, the new curriculum, we also purchased vertical boards, which has increased math discussion. If you walk into my math classrooms, you will see students at these boards constantly engaging with each other in math dialogue. It is one of the coolest things that I've ever seen, and that really comes out of building thinking classrooms. And another shout out to my math teachers because they took that on themselves and continue to learn and grow from each other with that. Fifth grade elementary PD opportunities. My fifth grade team has really spent a lot of time with the new math curriculum when it comes to alignment during professional development days with the elementary folks, since they are on a different platform. We do monthly vertical team meetings in both math and ELA. Success Maker is our new platform for really customized lessons for students. You heard me mention that. Students getting Success Maker minutes. It's similar to a Lexia program, but different. That's really aligned to the curriculum and offers them that really individual touch so that they are getting lessons and support exactly where they are. And then the lower quartile data, like I said, we have shared that with all grade levels, so each grade level team knows exactly who those students are so that we can support them in a different way. RTI Schedule, Earn, Win, like I said, real live, real opportunities to engage students at grade level to give them the scaffold support so that they're not getting off the interstate. They are getting the supports they need to stay on and on track with their peers. And then increasing learning walks. We've developed some learning walk tools around making sure our math and ELA resources are being done with integrity across the building. Very similar things with ELA, and one of the big focuses, I guess, outside of the ones from math is really putting an emphasis around reading. Actually reading in classrooms is something that we're going to be pushing moving forward. As we walk through classrooms, you don't see as much of it as you would think, given all the other things that we can be engaged in a 60-minute time period. So really having an intentional focus on actually reading grade level content in every class across every content.
Thank you, Nick. Questions as it relates to some of those action steps? These were some of the areas that we said we needed to work on. Nick is adamant that he noticed this over the trends that we were seeing over the last decade with TJ scores, but really engaged his guiding coalition and said, this is what I need, and came to Sarah and I and said, I need a system to give us data, to help us flow in what students need during that win time. So kudos to the team, and now we can track it. That data is there at his fingertips to be able to support teachers, that if they need extra resources, support, the data then reflects that.
This is great, Nick. A couple questions I have. Did the change to the new process start at the beginning of this school year?
Correct. So we spend the first couple weeks is always tough because we have so many other things that we use that win time for. With the shift to evidence-based grading, we spent the first couple weeks running lessons. I think I shared some of them in the board updates with you all, but really getting the kids accustomed to what this looks like and feels like, so that they felt comfortable with it moving forward into the school year. So we spend the first couple weeks doing stuff like that, and then we jump into a kind of a formal process like week 3. So it's been right away.
Yeah, it's great. Have you gotten any initial feedback from either students or teachers on like how they're liking it? Are the students feeling a difference?
That's a good question. I was expecting a lot more, I don't want to say negative feedback from the students, but it's it puts a little bit of onus on them to know where they're supposed to go, and that can be challenging sometimes. So the feedback that I've gotten has been very good, very positive so far. Same thing with the teachers. If the teachers I've had some teachers that are very, very, very excited about what they're doing and when. They're anxious to reach out and to share, like, I've never thought about doing something this way before, and now this is what we're doing. And that's been very cool to see those light bulbs go off. There's been some frustrations with the not really too many frustrations with the platform, but it is another thing for them to have to do, which can be challenging. So we want to make sure we provide them with the opportunities and the time to be able to do those things.
And then I guess I have one more. You had mentioned that the students that were pulled out prior to this new process were mostly around compliance.
Correct.
Are you still seeing those compliance issues, and if so, how is that being dealt with?
Yeah, I mean, compliance is always going to be an issue when you're working with 10 to 14-year-olds. That's for sure. So we still have that element, and in some aspects, the reteach does that. But instead of saying instead of you not doing the work, you're going to get a 0. Now the penalty for not doing the work is doing the work.
Yeah.
So now you're going to have to show me how you actually, this is what we did, and this is what I need you to show me in order for you to show me that you can do this at a grade level, and you're not going to leave here until we get there. So
Yeah.
it's really more about, I don't want to say forcing compliance, but it removes the compliance component of the grade so that we're giving an accurate reflection of where the students are at, but it's also making sure we're getting that from them.
It makes so much sense. I'm excited to see what the
Oh,
results come out as next time.
Fingers crossed.
Thanks a lot.
Say, Nick, can you go back to the one chart? Yeah, that. So how did you guys, as a staff, come up with your features over on the left-hand side? Was there a lot of collaboration already in the springtime and then over summer with
So,
teachers?
to be honest, my guiding coalition came back from the professional solutions tree that you guys went to in August, and it was like they were, I wasn't able to attend, but they came back and it was like they were the most motivated group of people I'd ever met. And this really comes out of that work that they did for those 3 days, and then the conversations we had afterwards leading up to the school year. And it was like, we've done all this work around priority standards, we've done all this work around essential skills, revamping the grading practices. This is the thing we have to do. And it's not one thing you can do, start second quarter or start at semester, because all those past practices will just come back. It was something that we had to do now. And I admitted when we stood up in front in the September Professional Development Day to go over this, I said, this has been a lot. It's been a lot. It's been a lot on them, a lot of changes for us as a school. And I recognize that, so really focusing this year around supporting those initiatives so that they don't feel overwhelmed and they do feel that support has been our priority. And I thank Michael and Sarah for giving us that time in professional development days to do things that are a little unique. But at the same time, all these 5 components really come from that group, as well as the RTI scheduler. That was all homegrown from them. They took it upon themselves to reach out to a couple of vendors to do some demos with us, and we picked RTI scheduler because it was just something that seemed to flow better.
So with your professional development days, this is something you guys come back to and you're discussing and.
Correct. So
diving
even just
deeper.
December 1st, for instance, we just met today to go over finalize that piece. It's going to be all around calibrating proficiency scales around evidence-based grading, and then leveraging those opportunities in WIN for supporting students, whether it's extension or reteaches, and what that's looked like, what's worked, what hasn't worked, comparing those data trends with each other vertically, so from 5th through 8th grade, with the content area. So we've got a pretty good plan moving into each professional development day.
Cool beans. It's continuous. It's not like professional development day, this thing, and then the next one, it's a different thing. This is continuous, which that's what we're trying to find is.
Right. We ripped a pretty big Band-Aid off early on in the year. So really now it's about making sure everybody's moving forward in the same direction.
Awesome. Thank you. And say thank you to everyone that's working on this at your school. Thank you.
I got a good crew.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
How long is win time? And
33 minutes
And it happens every day?
every day.
Okay, great. I was just curious. Thank you. I echo Yvonne and Karen's appreciation for what your staff are doing.
Thanks.
So logistically, how does that work for our staff? If the kids are finding out in the morning where they are, when is our staff finding out what kids they're going to have that morning?
They've put it in. So they've assessed, so we've, working with Jeff Wojcik too, we've set it up where priorities go to reteachers. So let's say I gave an assessment on a Thursday and I realize I need to bring these 15 kids in for a reteach. I can then set that up so on Tuesday is my priority day. These 15 kids I put in the system, and then another teacher might have the space to do a success maker, so kids might auto-enroll in the success maker, or if a teacher has identified these 5 students for extension, then they put the 5 students into the system. So it's really driven by the teaching staff, and then there's an auto-enroll feature for students that might not need a reteach or an extension, but still have an opportunity to do things like success maker, or the possibility of going to like a related arts class to support in those spaces too. But the priority is given to reteach and extension, because those are things really supportive of students. And then the success maker minutes are also an important piece, because the data shows that if students are meeting those minutes and meeting those requirements, that they also grow a year's worth of growth in a year's worth of time.
And one last question. You mentioned towards the end of your presentation, 60 minutes of ELA, I want to say. What do our teaching minutes look like compared to other schools, and are we looking at that?
Yeah, so we actually, you want me to
December.
start with it? So on Thursday at my staff meeting last week, I shared what the scheduling committee had come up with for next year. And it does have math and ELA in 80-minute blocks every single day. And then science and social studies will go to 40 to 42, depending on which hour it is of the day. And that puts us in about, I would say, the middle ground as it relates to some of the local comparables that Michael shared the report card differences in. Some of them are as high as like 95 minutes. Some of them are as low as 75 minutes. So we're kind of in that puts us a little above the lower trend. So that will be next school year as well.
And thank you. This is some great work, and there's a lot of work behind this work, so.
Yeah, I got to give all the kudos to the teaching staff. They've taken all that extra on, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
I would just add the power of this analogy in that all 4 cars in this situation now this year are getting 165 intentional minutes every week, where previously what Nick was referencing is some of them would get, placed with success maker in a big group, and, one car would get really intentional 165 minutes. But now we have hundreds of kids every day very intentionally being supported with either enrichment or support. So it's a huge lift, and the work that's happening is going to benefit kids. So.
Thanks.
Working through the other KPIs connected to the school report card, graduation rate, we've talked about this. We saw a slight dip from last year. We were 98.0, and this year we're 96.1, really connected to some things related to attendance. Our 3rd grade ELA and our 8th grade math scores went up, which is connected to the graduation component within the school report card. This is just truly looking at our 4- and 7-year cohort graduation rate, which we're at 96.1. Certainly something to be happy about, but we want to significantly exceed expectations. The final 2 is attendance. We meet expectations. Our school report card last year was 90.2, so we exceeded expectations, so we dropped. The attendance is connected to both chronic absenteeism and missing essentially 18 days. We're seeing more and more students miss school, which is obviously connected to then how can they be supported in RTI, what Nick was just referencing. So this is directly connected to the report card, and I'll be able to bring back each November.
Michael, are those excused absences or unexcused absences or a combination?
Combination, essentially, if you're missing more than 10, that's the threshold for truancy. This is 18, roughly, days of school falls into this category that essentially hurts our report card.
Could that 18 days, just in thinking about when we looked at high school attendance, could that be like a student missing first hour every single day for 3 months, and then that adds up to hours to be days at the high school? Okay, thank you.
This would be complete days. The final thing that we have as a component of the school report card, not necessarily scored, but something we're very keen on in that it's career ready, and that what are we doing to prepare students for college, career, and life. And so those are done through what we believe 4 key areas. Advanced courses are AP courses. Last year, Port Washington High School exceeded the state at 30.4% of our seniors graduated last year with an AP course. That's compared to the state at 20.3. dual enrollment? Are they taking a CAP course through UW-Oshkosh? Are they taking a dual credit course through MATC? One, are we offering more opportunities for kids to do that? Right now, we are below the state average, but we over doubled from the year before. So 14.7% of our students that graduated last year have dual enrollment. So they're taking credits with them that moms and dads don't have to pay college credit for. So we want that number to be closer to the state average, and we'll be bringing a course forward for recommendation to do that. Industry credentials, are we offering courses that students can take a certification and a credential to be ready for the workforce? We're at 4.9%, state is at 5.5%. Finding other ways, simply asking our departments, if you're going to bring a course forward, how can it add dual enrollment, industry credit, or can it be connected another way to a class that will get us there? And so our high school staff has started to do that. And then finally, work-based learning. Huge jump, we went from 1.3% to 6.2%, but still below the state average of 8%. Our goal is to significantly exceed expectations and be above all four of these. I want to note one thing, that the AP courses or advanced courses actually dropped in the state. It went from 21.1 to 20.3. I wonder if we will start to see some of these level out as comprehensive high schools want to offer everything for all students. I will say we're set up very well at this high school to do that. We have all of the puzzle pieces ready. We simply need to add some of those dual credit opportunities and industry credentials within the courses that we have. And I know Rachel and the team at the high school are starting to do that work. So, questions around the school report card or any of the KPIs connected to the report card? Awesome.
We will move on to the high school schedule update for the 26-27 school year.
Yes, I will call Rachel over to talk through just some high-level components of the high school schedule discussion. I don't think you have your presentation crew here tonight, but we did go over this at high levels with curriculum last week, really thinking about, you heard Nick talk about local comparables, what are other districts doing? Rachel has engaged a team from across the high school to talk through these high levels decisions about next steps for the school schedule for Port Washington High School.
Yeah, so we've been sitting down since June and really kind of kicked it off, going harder once the fall hit to talk about what our schedule might look like, looking at our neighbors, knowing that 6 of 8 is standard in terms of what is taught. What would that look like to really enhance the student learning opportunities? And so we narrowed it down really to looking at our schedule, which is a modified block, and then started having the conversation around a block schedule. And then landed on a block with a singleton one day, so that kind of mirrors a local school district that does that. It allows for that consistency of an AB, as well as a skinny in there to run all days, knowing that that is really a benefit to those classes where, I'm going to call it cyclical learning or spiral curriculum. Think of math, world languages, music, where that touch point is really important. So we met several times, committee, really robust conversations, and really proud of that group. They went back out to their departments each time. We had collaborative conversations. We talked to students in the hallways and at lunch. And what I would say is this, I don't know that there's a perfect schedule out there, but it's about leaning in to provide those opportunities for supports. Nick just got done talking about, how do you provide those interventions and extensions? And when you think of doing 45-minute class periods, that presents some opportunity to have a lot in your day, but also some challenges to truly provide those interventions and extensions. One of the other benefits to going to a potential block on those 4 days is it allows for us to have that resource time 4 days of the week to really pinpoint those opportunities for intervention extension. We also realize that 90 minutes, that's a robust time for anybody to stay focused. And so I think it's really important that we, if this is the route that we go, lean into professional development. In our current modified block, we have that 2 days a week, but when we have it 4 days a week, that looks different. And so how do we sit down together and talk about pacing, talk about what's included in that curriculum, getting to those essential standards and learning targets, and really having that robust conversation around that as well. So again, a collaborative effort, very thankful that our team came together and we had 2 members be able to talk to committee, noting that within that, there's a 17-minute increase to the day to allow for those resources as well. It also allows you to have those 90-minute periods, and I guess another aligning on that is how that might impact the school year, which can have some positives, but certainly conversation around how those, again, provide interventions, extensions, and supports. No matter the schedule, we looked at some of those things that were going to be part of what we were doing. So not so much the duties anymore. Those would be things where those can be educational assistants, but really having our teaching staff with our students to, again, provide the interventions, extension supports, realizing that that might be more capable in those extended hours. And then really looking at our local comparables too. So when we look at our neighboring schools and what they're utilizing and the successes that they're having, there is a consistent use of a block schedule on a rotational A-B basis. Again, do I think that that's the know-all, end-all, be-all? I don't think any one person would tell you there's a perfect schedule, but when we think of ways that we can continue to grow, and for us, it's growth on the report card too. You know, again, to Nick's point, we see achievement in our district is an absolute highlight. Growth is an area where we can continue to do just that, grow. And so how do we provide that structure to do that? I think some of the most telling things that were shared with me when I talked to students in the hallway was around, you know, Mrs. Beardser, when we have that extended time, I have more time to talk with my teacher. I don't have 8 tests on a day. I've had a kid talk to me about like mental health on those days when you're not taking as many tests in that time. And so just having those conversations. Other kids would say, I love having the variety of 8. So we'll have a day of the week where we would still have all of those going. But when you hear students talk about ability to connect with their teacher, to have that guide on the side, and, you know, Noah talked about his day, swim, Stuco, school, and then if you put 8 classes of homework in there, that can be intense. And so those are all factors that we talked about quite a bit as the adults in the room, but also getting that input from students too. In terms of homeroom, that would continue with our schedule as well, but because the resource time is 40 minutes, it might be, it's looking at something that would be twice a month versus 4 times a month to, again, allow for that resource time. A priority for us will continue to be collaborative team time with our PLCs or collaborative teams. And then a secondary priority, if we can. If you've ever built a master schedule for a high school, there's a lot of moving pieces, but the hope that we can have somebody, say, having a first hour prep and a 6th hour prep so that each day of the week they have some of that time for them to be able to provide feedback for students. You start talking about 100 to 120, 30 students in your class to give that timely feedback. We're going to see what we can do to build that. I told them I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver when you're scheduling for 60 staff members, but that's a secondary piece that we want to hopefully be able to do. We talked a little bit about the skinny already and the consistency that that allows for us to go A-B, and then run all 8. Again, how that benefits classes like music, world languages, math especially. Here's a sample schedule. Please note, this is a sample. We've talked about it, but we know that as a committee, it really depends on where we feel as this board in terms of what we want to say for next school year, and then we'll work some of these pieces out. Again, this is a 17-minute ad, so you can see us starting at 7:25, and then our day getting done at 2:55, and making sure that that's something that works within our district with busing. Also, it puts lunch a little later in the day. So we've had conversations around, is that getting too late? If you look at some other schools around us, Grafton, Cedarburg, I'll use those two, they have one of their lunch periods where it's class lunch, class. And so we can take a look at that as well. We certainly want to have opportunities for our kids to feel nourished. If you've been around a 15 to 18-year-old who hasn't ate for a while, that can be a challenge. So those are all things that, those aren't set in stone, but an example of what the block would look like. And then that skinny day where we would run all 8 periods and no resource on that day, but allow for those touch points with all teachers. We did a straw poll back in October on where people felt in this. Then on November 6th, we did a full-on vote. The day before, we had talked to department leaders. A skinny came back up then, and it was kind of like this moment, like, hey, maybe we can kind of merge the world where we've been with additional instructional minute time. And so that's where the skinny came from. I've been in contact. We're doing email tag with another district local to us that's running that one, that has since COVID, and just getting some feedback from them as well. But excited for the opportunity. And the other thing I would say is this collaboration. You know, Karen, you had asked in the committee meeting, like the input from folks and where do they sit. The 3 that were full block AB, which just means it would rotate and some Mondays you'd start as a B day, some as an A day. They said, hey, I'm okay either way if we go skinny or full block rotation. They could see the benefits in both. So we really had a collaborative, robust approach and a staff that's excited by this opportunity. Again, change can present opportunity as well as some challenges. We know that we need to fill the cup of capacity and continue to professional develop around what it looks like to engage students for 90 minutes. If you look at the flip side of the argument is that that's a long time. And so talking about transitions, brain breaks, active engagement, refresh, focus, we have to spend time on what that looks like because it can't just be 2 lessons put into one day. And so we have to make sure that we're on the same page with that moving forward. It speaks to the next steps. What questions do you have?
Can you talk to me about resource time?
Yes, so we currently have resource in our modified block, which similar to What I Need, students are able to sign up and or called in from teachers on those interventions extensions. I think every time I hear Nick talk, I'm like, golly, there's another idea from the middle school that we can try to implement with the intentionality that they have and us continue to grow. We try to give some autonomy at the high school age to pick theirs. But one of the things I would say when it's only twice a week versus the potential to have 4 within a rotating block schedule is I might need to see the 3 of you. And I can get to the 2 of you perhaps this week, but maybe you also need to be seen by 3 other teachers. And so now I'm not quite sure when I'm getting to you. It might be like next week, and for you it might be the end of the month. And by that point, trying to do those intervention extensions is quite a gap. By having it 4 days a week, you allow for that many more touch points with teachers to see students, to provide supports. And so that's one of the biggest, when we think of like numero uno, why you think about making a schedule shift, it's how you can support your student learners, continue to close achievement gaps. And so that resource time, what the students need, being intentional around that. And we've talked with other districts. We have people right within our walls that have perspective, that they've used that also as an incentive for 11th and 12th graders. Like if you've got what you need, you can be intentional, especially with your 9th and 10th graders, where we know that is the root start to success. You can get success 9th grade out of the gate, it's looking really good, that we can be intentional around that too, and maybe it incentivizes our 11th and 12th graders if they have everything they need to have a late start on a couple of days. So that's another potential feather in the cap for scaffolding to careers. Plus, I love the idea of, can we get you in a work co-op or YA opportunity, and then you can maybe sleep in because you're working at night and come in a little bit later.
So with that scheduler that Nick uses, is that something that would potentially be able to be used at the high school?
That would certainly be a conversation that I'd want to have. We use Infinite Campus right now, which is okay, but I would say that that's a student information system, student management system that is built for attendance and some other pieces more so than as a responsive scheduler. I have experience in other places where it's a specific program that's meant for that you have a little bit more control on the teacher end to ensure that you're getting the students that you need. Plus the data sets that he put up there, what a blessing to be able to look at that in real time. I see as a little bit, it's not built specifically for that, we'll put it that way. A little clunkier for that kind of data.
Okay, because what I really like about what Nick was saying was that there wasn't the, and I don't recall the language Nick used exactly, but it's not because you didn't turn in your homework, but it's because I did an analysis of, student performance on something, and then you're missing these priority standards, and that's what we're gonna work on. I have another question about the added 17 minutes in the day with students. Does that have an effect on school days?
So the one discussion we've started to have with the bus company is what will that do to busing, that we do not see it impacting elementary start time, end time, but it could impact the middle school start or end time. That the middle school could be ending slightly later, adding potentially 5 to 7 minutes to the middle school day. Then the buses would pick up our middle school students first, come over to the high school and pick up those students that are ending at 2:55. And so in order to close the gap between the end of middle school and the end of high school, we could close that gap by adding some minutes to middle school. And also just thinking a little bit differently, could middle school start a little bit later? The The minutes that are tied to DPI are 7th through 12th grade instructional minutes, so those are things that we have to be mindful of making sure if we do add minutes to the high school, we're going to certainly be well above our instructional minutes. Right now, we're pretty tight with 403 minutes per day. Moving to 420 would give us a lot of time and a lot of flexibility within our
Which really helps with the potential snow days and cold days.
without question.
And then one final thing about that end time of 2:55. I know that it's a very different time than when I was in high school, but there were a lot of youngsters who actually had second shift jobs that began at 3. So are we going to have, do you see that having an impact on some youngsters? And if that does have an impact, are we looking at possibly making that time be not dual enrollment? I don't recall
It would be a wonderful opportunity to have a WBL, work-based learning
Yes,
opportunity.
exactly.
So you take a credit that's related to that area. It could be everything from a co-op, although that's shifting a little bit with the state, to meaning that you can still have work-based learning experience.
Okay.
All the way up to a youth apprenticeship, meaning that's a pathway that they're looking at going into. You take a related course. It's a little bit more robust of that YA because you need 450 hours of work time to garner those credits, and you have a built-in mentor, and you get a cert when that's done. But absolutely, that's an opportunity. One of the other questions that came up in committee, and it's very real at this level, is extracurriculars. So whether we're talking about transporting athletes or other opportunities to do things out in the community, what I've said is this: we are within about a 35-minute drive of any of our conference opponents within the Glacier Trails, which is an absolute blessing. And nowhere else have I been in the state, a little bit north of here and then a little bit in the valley area, that has gotten done this early. When I came here and we ended the day at 2:38, I was baffled. We can have conversations around 7:25 start time and the research on that, but I'll let Michael maybe dip his toes into that one at some point. And truly, the reason I say that is I think that you're going to see benefits to actually going a little bit longer and being here and having those instructional minutes. I don't think that that's going to be a negative. And the reality is schools around us are getting out later than this that are, going to the same things. But if it comes to work-based learning opportunities, what a great conversation to say, hey, did you know that you could, 8th hour, you've got your block out and you're working. And because it's black, now instead of starting at 2 o'clock, you can start at 1:30.
And I do have one final question. So the no additional duties for the class, for teachers, is that they won't have to have a study hall supervision. That's going to be handled by other adults in the building. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to utilize our staff in their areas of expertise. We realize study halls are important and wonderful, but we feel that that can be something that is a great opportunity for an educational assistant and allows our teachers to then be in front of the students with the content.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So when I first saw the schedule, the proposed schedule, I had a lot of reservations, which we've talked about, and you did a great job with your presentation today, really addressing some of those. My biggest concern is 3 block classes in a row with just 5-minute passing times in between. You shared with me that Grafton has this schedule at their high school, and I was wondering maybe if Michael could share some practical information, like what he knows about that, as well as like what sorts of things you'll be doing to those classes that don't lend themselves quite as intuitively to 90-minute block classes to keep kids active and engaged, and how are we going to help the teachers with that? Like, will it be an LBC focus or?
One, I think you have to commit to capacity building. To make a change like this and not provide the support for your staff, the communication with your students and community would put us in a position to not see the success that we're garnering to see. I think of it this way. If I were teaching in this, I think of it a lot like coaching. I get an hour-and-a-half practice with the athletes. And back in the day when I coached hoops, I would have just been salivating over an hour and a half versus 45 minutes. And I think you can make that same comparison to the classroom in the sense that you can shift what you're doing. You know, I can have 3 or 4 natural transitions. I can have some independent work time, some small group, a 5-minute brain break, community builder, and get right back into it. Because I think it's important to note that to go 90 minutes for anybody straight on one thing would be not best practice. And so really breaking it up in so many ways, like it is 15 to 20-minute chunks and transitioning to the next piece. But we're gonna have to talk about that. And I think the biggest thing too is, you know, what does pacing look like? You know, the work that we're doing with guaranteed and viable curriculum, understanding what are our essential learning and what's supplementary or extension to that, so that we can provide that for students right within the hour too. There were so many times that I would have wished for more minutes. I was like, oh man, there's so much more that we want to talk about. And my exit slip is like, well, you're sprinting out the room. But being cognizant of that, and to your point, some of our classes are like, hallelujah. You know, by the time we set up the car on the lift and got working on it and brought it down, it was like 25 minutes of work time. Now, this is an absolute blessing. But if I'm going straight 90 minutes of lecture, that's not going to be conducive. So we need to talk about what that looks like specifically. But I think of it as a lot of transitions, opportunities for common formative assessments right during real time, checking in small group, independent work. I'm excited. I appreciate the question. I don't know if I'm answering it beautifully, a main stretch, but yeah.
I would add to it, that's also why we're here now. Ultimately, we want to provide professional development for staff January, February, March, April, and so why we're just 2 months into this school year and we're planning for next September's calendar is because we want the time to think ahead and prepare our staff for those changes. Actually received an email from a sophomore today concerned about being lectured at for 90 minutes and had some really clear guidance and actually some research on why this isn't good for kids. And so I will certainly follow up with that student that's why we're bringing this to you now, is because we want to be able to provide opportunities for staff to think and change. LBCs will be part of that. How do they change their current system to be more engaging for kids? To speak to my experience in Grafton, I would say the one thing that I saw as a value and a benefit was simply the mental health of kids. Rachel touched on this, in that a student having to do 8 classes, and in some cases they're not doing 8 classes. We have kids that are flexing their first hour of the day and are not coming to Port Washington High School, and we've allowed for that. Those are kids that are not taking classes with our teachers because we're allowing them to flex that time period as a senior. Can we give them opportunities, and will they be more interested in taking more classes from our teachers in dual credits and certifications when we can make those classes aligned to their future? I think that's also on us to make them engaging. And so I will say I'm married to a high school math teacher that does struggle not being able to see her kids every day, and that math is one of those things that there's a perception that they should be doing it every day. That's why I think that beginning of the day resource time brings that in, that if you struggled with yesterday's math lesson, I might not see you that day, but I'm going to still bring you in for a resource time to connect and stay engaged in that. The power of that 40 minutes to start the day to get kids caught up is really powerful. And then also, I didn't get a chance to say this with Nick's presentation, but a 60-minute class at the middle school and a 45-minute class at the high school, you can certainly deliver the content, but can you engage those students that need that extra support? We're relying pretty heavily on resource and win time at the middle school, but when we can embed some of those reteaches within that core daily lesson, that's where the magic happens, I think, and that's where I think we need to start to get our teachers to have that time to do. That we can't just say, well, let's just add it to resource and add it to win. When we can have a longer, sustained block of time and we teach our staff how to utilize the data and ways to instruct, I think it's going to be good for kids. Like Rachel has said, there is no perfect schedule, but I think this moves us in the right direction. Simply put, for kids and focus for 4 classes a day in their mental health.
And the power of keeping a skinny in there too, to try to get that additional contact time, breaking up the week a little bit. I'm excited at that opportunity and glad that we kind of came back to that center as well. There's kind of that thought too of each week a different day rotates to your Monday. And then, you know, if I teach Com 2 Friday and then Monday it's the same, like this allows for some of those touch points as well as just that, I think in some ways the neatness of putting a bow on it for kids for the week.
To bring that full circle, I would say, I don't think we need approval tonight. What we could do is bring back the official schedule, what it would look like in December, as well as a plan for what professional development will look like for the second half of the school year, to kind of give that, the board and the perspective to our staff and the community that we are intentional about the next steps on this and preparing everyone. I think that could be a next step. So December 22nd, we can bring this back, unless you have other questions or feel comfortable, but I would feel better sharing that in a concrete way to say, here's the schedule, here's what it looks like, and then here is what the PD looks like for the rest of the year.
Yeah, one other comment. I like the idea that you had about having transitions into different sections of the 90 minutes. I just think about when I studied for actuarial exams, the more different ways you go through the same kind of material, you retain it better. It just like draws more, what is it called, like routes in your brain. And I think I think it's really important to do something with the LBCs and how to utilize that 90 minutes to teach the same kind of content, but, break out for focus and also for retaining it better, like gelling it in, so.
Yeah, in our modified block currently, we talk about active engagement, tier 1 instructional strategies, and the robustness of them. You'll see that most on our block days, just because of time crunches. You'll get in an active strategy, you'll start going, and then you kind of the bell again. This allows for more of that. But it's about learning what that looks like 4 days a week versus 5, and how important that is. But yeah, totally agree.
And a block is really a philosophical shift in that you want to go deeper into that content. Like you said, you can use it multiple ways rather than surface level with a lot of stuff. And so I commend the staff because it is a shift in focus. And I think it's a shift we need because schools have changed. Society's changed. It's not about gaining lots of content, at a surface level. It's really about how to go deeper so that they can do that same, they can transfer those same skills to any content that they want to see.
I think if we're going to hold off on taking any action on this until next month, so that we can kind of think about it and get some more, let's say, community feedback on it, will there be something about this on the website where the community can look at what we've got here proposed, so to speak?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Put something related to shifting from the 2-day, and I think staff, parents, and students have experienced it. It's not like other districts that went from the 8-period day to a block completely. This is really doubling the amount of block, but I think we could certainly put that out.
And I think that, from my perspective, to me, it all makes sense. But just knowing how some people take to change or not, just having the information out there and available to chew on and digest a little bit for a little period of time before we take action on it maybe would be a good idea.
And to kind of piggyback off what Michael just said, the blessing is that we 2 days a week do it. So it's not a complete shift for our students or our staff. It's just allowing for more of those rich, deep opportunities.
Great, then do we agree to bring it back in December? Okay, that's what we'll do. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Rachel, you can stay to talk high-level new course proposals, but we'll turn it over to Sarah. We obviously went in depth as it relates to these courses, so we'll just kind of do the high-level overview of the PDF here of, not that one, sorry, of updates for courses. So I'll turn over to Sarah and Rachel.
So basically, we're just pulling up that memo of the courses that we were able to deeper dive any level. Thank you. The changes to the course offerings that we are looking for is in the business department, potentially adding an AP Business with Personal Finance course. Students could earn, there will be 1 high school credit, but they could earn up to 4 college credits.
And we wanted to point out with that one is sort of in limbo because we're waiting to hear back from the DPI on some things, but we have some, can kind of cross that bridge when we come to it. The communications department is looking to add the written communication course, which is a dual credit course, half a credit for high school and 3 MATC credits is what students could earn from that course. The computer science department is looking to kind of replace that Tech Plus through the Comp TIA, which is that they could earn industry credentials, industry certification for a half of a high school credit. And just for some clarity, I know we had talked a little bit about that cybersecurity class and that when I dug deeper into it, it basically kind of that cybersecurity class really was sort of an introduction to coding. It was from that lens. And so the feedback that she'd given me was that students were not looking exactly for that intro to coding piece. So it wasn't being utilized and students weren't signing up for it because it wasn't exactly what they were thinking it was. So it truly was an intro to cybersecurity and understanding that, but that's not necessarily what the kids thought they were signing up for. So I think that this one fits that a lot better because it gives them the opportunity to do something with that beyond.
Sarah, related to that then, is there an opportunity then to do like a more focused cybersecurity class if that's what students were kind of looking for? Just something to consider in the future?
Absolutely. I think that's a really great question. So when it's replacing it, it's not necessarily replacing that it wouldn't always be there, because I agree. If that is something that students are looking for that isn't covered in other classes, yep, something we could bring back for sure. And I should point out that it's not always about taking something off to put something on, but we really many times have that conversation about being cost neutral. It doesn't always work that way. But that's a conversation every time someone brings that consideration to Rachel. That's what she says. How could we do this in the most cost-neutral way as possible? Because we are taking courses off to then replace the courses we're putting on. Not always a one-for-one, but we are very cognizant that we can't support all of the courses, both with time and focus and resources and fiscally. Music department, proposing a new course, The Lifelong Musician, for half a high school credit. And that's the one that really is trying to appeal to students that are maybe not our band and choir students, but are interested in music. We put half credit there. I think that he's still exploring that course a little bit more, so it could be potential more. For the social studies department too, and I want to point out, they didn't want you to think that they did not want to be at the meeting. The only reason is I knew enough about these courses to be able to bring that to you, so it's not a knock on our social studies department. They would have been happy to come and do this as well. But adding the AP Economics, which would be an AP Micro and AP Macroeconomics course in 1 year, they'll earn 1 high school credit and the potential for up to 8 college credits for the two AP tests. And then adding the AP Human Geography class, again, 1 high school credit, up to about 4 college credits, and that's a great course, as we pointed out, to because it's really created for 9th grade students to have that chance to dip their toe into AP level work. And then for our wellness department, the Principles of Officiating, which is also a dual credit course, half high school credit, 2 UWO credits, and really filling a need that we have in our communities, alternative source of, support for students. They can get started doing some of that right away. It's pretty great pay and can support a lot of things that they like to do. So what we do is we are recommending the approval of the new courses as detailed above for Port Washington High School for the 26-27 school year. Yeah.
I will motion to approve the new course proposals for the Port Washington High School for the 2026-2027 school year as presented.
And I'll second.
And we'll do roll call.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Yvonne?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And Kirsten?
Aye.
Motion passed.
One other quick fun fact nugget, was on a call with MATC last week with Jen Clapper, our ACP strategist, and talking about potential to have additional courses that are already on the books, if you can get it to align with their syllabus, that they can become transcripted. So just an FYI that we continue to look at that with courses we already have and Per state statute, transcripted courses are cost neutral, not only to the student, but our district. So they can earn those credits, it's no cost to anybody. And so just another awesome opportunity. Also, key performance indicator, Michael showed that we have 1 of 4 in these areas, our AP tests. You saw steadily us growing in these areas. A note that many of these courses provide those opportunities. So just thanks to Sarah and thanks to our teaching staff, but MATC, cost neutral transcripted credit, we continue to have conversations around other classes too.
Great. Great. Thank you, Rachel. We'll move on to our learning-based compensation update.
Yes, I'll take this coming out of finance, really continue to engage in the compensation committee that did a lot of work last year to reorganize our compensation system. We've talked a little bit about that group, but we've brought them back together to look at learning-based compensation or learning-based credits and what that means for the summer of 2026. Really wanting to tap into the impact of those LBCs. So this last year, the LBC was at $125 per session that they attended, up to $500 or 4 sessions. The impact of that related to the budget, if we are anticipating a CPI increase of around $270,000 of the bucket, that represented $90,000 of the LBC at $125. That compensation committee is recommending increasing that LBC to $200 for a max of $800. It's shifting the buckets as it relates to compensation, so more of the overall compensation is tied then to the learning-based compensation, really leaning into that we saw value to that. You've even heard some of the comments tonight that should we be using LBC to support staff in the new schedule, really seeing value in that and intentionally looking at it as a credit. Previously, our compensation system was based on staff going elsewhere to get college credits, master's credits, et cetera. This is essentially us creating opportunities for staff and what they need that's timely. And it could be teaching in a block. It could be related to math instruction that is embedded in the data that Nick is finding. Reteaching, we're not seeing enough reteaching on this standard. So really timely feedback as it relates to that. And so we were in agreement. Certainly, the compensation committee felt very strongly of changing this. This is an annual thing that we would bring to you based on certainly the CPI and the budget impact, but the district would support this. Administration is recommending changing the LBC from $125 to $200 per learning-based credit, and this would increase for the 26-27 per LBC, and would, again, come back annually to the board for approval.
That certainly ties in nicely with the presentations that we've had tonight. So happy to do that for our staff. And if I could have a motion to that effect?
A motion to approve the updated learning-based compensation as presented.
I'll second that.
And we'll do a roll call, Carolyn.
Brian?
Aye.
Yvonne?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Kirsten?
Aye.
And Stephanie?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Board correspondence, there are 2 cards going around. If you would please sign that. And then I will make a motion to adjourn to closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Subparent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility for the purpose of considering superintendent performance evaluation data, and per Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Subparent F, considering financial, medical, and social or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where Par B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to, and such histories or data or involvement in such problems or investigations for the purpose of discussing a former employee request for a refund of liquidated damages.
I will second that motion.
We are in closed session.
We got to do a roll call.
Would you like to hear that again? Roll call. Yep, sorry, we need a roll call.
Yvonne?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Kirsten?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you, administrators.